the type to beat up the bad guy when things turn ugly.
My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is August 29th, 2025. It is 1:10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top U.S. news highlights from the past 24 hours. D.C. police federalization continues to face legal challenges. The federal takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. remains disputed. Some interpret Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act as permitting federal control. D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb has sued, contending the move is unconstitutional and violates local autonomy. Chicago officials prepare for federal National Guard plans. The Trump administration may deploy National Guard troops and ICE agents to Chicago. While local leaders strongly oppose this, Illinois Attorney General Mcgrawl is preparing legal challenges. Immigrant advocates are mobilizing legal support ahead of potential action. Trump eyes guard deployment in multiple cities despite declining crime. Trump has suggested deploying guards to 6 Democratic-led cities. However, statistical data shows violent crime, including homicides, is down significantly year over year in these urban centers. Critics argue the deployment is politically motivated and constitutionally dubious. Navy base may support ICE operations near Chicago. DHS has requested access to Naval Station Great Lakes to facilitate ICE strike teams as part of immigration enforcement. However, Illinois leaders condemned the plan, calling it unconstitutional and harmful to community trust. FEMA employees placed on leave after a public letter. Several FEMA staff members were placed on leave after signing an open letter warning of leadership failures and parallels to the Katrina response. The administration's response reflects increasing tension within federal agencies under pressure. Union Station in D.C. federalized. The administration has taken over control of Washington's Union Station from Amtrak, part of broader federal consolidation under the law enforcement surge. That's what it's being called. Over 900 National Guard troops now patrol the Capitol, and the Union Station takeover underscores the expanding federal footprint in infrastructure. CDC director resigns just weeks into tenure. Susan Maneres, appointed CDC director less than a month ago, has left her post. Her abrupt exit comes amid political reshaping of the CDC, including changes to vaccine policy and advisory structures. Marco Rubio to visit Mexico and Ecuador. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will embark on his 4th trip to Latin America since assuming office in January. His agenda includes Mexico City and Quito, where the focus will be on tracking illegal immigration, disrupting drug cartels, and challenging China's influence, particularly investments tied to the Belt and Road Initiative. India looks east, faces tensions with U.S. amid escalating tensions with Washington, highlighted by new U.S. tariffs on Indian goods. India's Prime Minister Modi is set to visit China, marking his first such visit in 7 years. The shift signals a possible realignment of regional alliances as India balances growing trade pressures from the U.S. with strategic interests. Denmark rebukes U.S. over alleged influence in Greenland. Danish authorities have formally summoned the U.S. envoy over reports that individuals linked to President Trump are attempting to influence Greenland's independence movement. The Russians, once again, are being accused of interference. Denmark's prime minister and Greenland's leader strongly denounced any meddling. Diplomatic chaos, missteps in Ukraine peace efforts. A private envoy sent by Trump to navigate peace in Ukraine initially claimed Russia was offering territorial concessions, only to reverse the narrative the next day. This confusion exposed disorganization within the U.S.'s diplomatic approach and stirred criticism from European officials. Taiwan worries about U.S. commitment to defense. A new podcast episode highlights growing anxiety in Taiwan about the U.S. under Trump. The prevailing narrative is that Taiwan may be treated as disposable in U.S. strategic thinking if it's deemed too costly or of limited strategic value. The discussions underscore fears around U.S. unreliability in the face of Chinese military pressure. Legal pushback grows on domestic force employments. The administration's moves federalizing D.C. law enforcement planning deployments to Chicago and deploying via the Navy base are generating strong legal resistance from state officials, civil rights groups, and legal scholars who warn of constitutional overreach. And for the stock market, today the S&P 500 closed at $648.92, up approximately 0.36%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, DIA, closed at $456.79, rising about 0.18%, and Invesco QQQ Trust ended the day at $577.08, gaining around 0.62%. Wall Street reached record highs. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones both closed at fresh all-time records, while the Nasdaq also posted broad gains. Economic signals and Fed watch optimism about a potential Fed rate cut fueled market optimism, especially ahead of upcoming inflation data. As Friday's PCE report, investors reacted positively to strong GDP revisions, which affirmed economic resilience. Tech and AI stocks in focus. Nvidia's earnings, though slightly undercutting growth expectations, helped lift AI and tech sectors, contributing to broader market strength. And here are the economic highlights. U.S. GDP growth revised higher to 3.3% in quarter two. The Commerce Department issued a second estimate showing the U.S. economy grew 3.3% annualized rate in the second quarter of 2025, up from the initial 3.0 estimate and rebounding sharply from a 0.5% contraction in quarter one. The revised growth was driven by stronger consumer spending, increased business investment, and significantly reduced imports following earlier tariff-driven stockpiling. That doesn't make very much sense to me. The Commerce Department issued a second estimate showing that the economy grew. I don't see how the economy can grow when you're making it so nobody can afford to do business and nobody can afford to buy anything that's non-essential. The United States Commerce Department, DOC, is an executive branch agency responsible for driving U.S. economic growth and opportunity by fostering innovation, promoting fair trade, supporting businesses, and creating jobs. Howard Lutnick, following his 2024 election win, President Trump nominated Lutnick to be his Secretary of Commerce. Wilbur Ross was also appointed by Trump as the Secretary of Commerce. So I'm assuming that this is loyalist data and that this is inaccurate data because this seems manipulative. The economy certainly does not appear to be growing. I mean, I'm reporting the news all day, every day through various means, and I'm not seeing signs of growth. So I'll just say that. And if somebody's to blame, if there's loyalist reports coming out that are inaccurate with these kinds of numbers, I'm assuming that that would have something to do with Howard Lutnick. Corporate profits rebound. U.S. corporate profits rebounded strongly in quarter two, rising by $65.5 billion after a first quarter decline of $90.6 billion. So it went down $90.6 billion and only increased in quarter two, but $65.5 billion, meaning that there is a loss of around like $25 billion. Despite rebounding profits, rising import tariffs, part of recent protectionist trade policies, are creating cost pressures, particularly for companies like Caterpillar, GM, and Abercrombie & Fitch. Fed official signals rate cuts soon. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller said he expects rate cuts to begin as early as September, with additional cuts likely over the next 3 to 6 months. His remarks support growing market expectations for monetary easing. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the Dow Jones or S&P 500 may be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here's the 3-day hazardous weather outlook for the U.S. Expect widespread cloudiness and morning showers. No major hazards expected. August 29th, weather becomes humid. I think this is from my area. Additional alerts and regional risks. Central Plains and to deep south, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi. A dangerous flash flood threat is in effect due to rounds of torrential storms. Heavy downpours up to 3 inches per hour have already triggered flash flood warnings and Interstate 35 closures near Wellington, Kansas. The threat continues through the work week into Labor Day weekend, especially along the Ozarks and Southern Plains. A level 2 out of 4 flash flood risk and level 1 of 5 severe weather risk remain active. Northern California and Pacific Northwest and Omega Block weather pattern is dominating, offering calm and mild conditions for Northern California ahead of Labor Day. Afternoon mountain thunderstorms may occur in Oregon and Washington. However, if the pattern evolves into a Rex block, a heat surge could bring triple-digit temperatures to Sacramento early next week. Washington, D.C. area meteorologists note that summer has effectively ended early in the capital, with fall-like temperatures increasing comfort levels and reducing heat-related risks. East Coast marine hazards, swells from Tropical Storm Fernand, and lingering effects of Hurricane Erin continue to generate dangerous rip currents along Atlantic beaches. Swimmers and beachgoers should remain vigilant. And here are the key international news highlights from the past 24 hours. U.S. warships deployed near Venezuela. Tensions escalate. A substantial U.S. naval deployment, including 7 warships, a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine, and roughly 4,500 personnel, 2,200 Marines, has taken position in the southern Caribbean. The operation is framed as a combat action against Latin American drug cartels, designated as terrorist organizations. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro condemned it as imperial aggression and responded by mobilizing 15,000 troops to the western border. I am personally not aware of anything going on in Venezuela. There is nothing significant that has taken place in Venezuela to catch my attention. So I do find it concerning that Trump is trying to station there. I'm also worried about relationships with Russia, and if Russia is being assisted by the United States to gain territory in the region, then gaining access to the connecting land between the United States and South America would be a great place for Putin to set up a station if he wants to engage in espionage on both continents. So that's something I just want to point out, because it's known that Russians like to come in through Texas. And that's what I'm concerned about when I look at a map. U.S. withdraws from UN's major human rights review. The United States has declined to participate in the upcoming Universal Periodic Review, UPR, of its human rights record, the first such withdrawal in the UPR's history. This move, executed via executive order, aligns with Trump's exit from the UN Human Rights Council, drawing strong criticism from human rights advocates concerned about the undermining of international human rights norms. Israeli drone malfunctions, Lebanese soldiers fatality reported. During an operation targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon, an Israeli drone malfunctioned, resulting in unintended casualties among Lebanese soldiers. The Israeli military issued a statement expressing regret over the incident. Temasek announces major restructuring. Singapore's state-owned investment firm Temasek revealed a substantial organizational overhaul, its most significant structural shift in over half a century. This reorganization reflects strategic repositioning as Temasek adapts to global economic and investment challenges. Iran signals readiness to resume fair nuclear talks. Iran's foreign minister stated Tehran is open to resuming nuclear negotiations on the condition that Western powers show sincere goodwill. The statement follows a move by the UK, France, and Germany to reinitiate a snapback of UN sanctions over the stalled nuclear agreement. New trials ordered for officers in Tyre Nichols' case. In a major U.S. legal decision with international attention, 3 former Memphis police officers convicted at the federal level for their roles in the Tyre Nichols killing have been granted new trials. The court cited concerns over possible judicial bias due to ex parte communications. Today is August 29, 2025. It is 1:27 a.m. and this has been the last 24 hours in the news.
So the Olympics is great, and Johnny for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny, and we got the World Cup too. And you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026 and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.